This is Jonathan from the Ryan Family Y, and thank you for joining us for Be Well. We have an exciting conversation coming up related to the art of mindfulness. And in thinking about the art of mindfulness, I pulled a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh from his book by the same title, The Art of Mindfulness. And what Tay says is, according to the Buddha, life is available only in the here and now, the present moment. He said the past is already gone. The future is not yet here. There's only 1 minute, 1 moment for you to live, and that is the present moment. If you miss the present moment, you miss your appointment with life. So with that as our inspiration, we're going to play a little bit on the word of the art of mindfulness, because today our guest is an artist and also the art director for Zagö Studio Gallery in Solana Beach. Ethan is with us, and he's going to speak to how art can be that medium that allows us to move to that mindful present moment, also offering us the ability to find that stillness, that calm, that mindful state. So Ethan, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan.
A pleasure. So if you will, tell us a little bit about this whole idea of a mindfulness and the relationship to art, and how that comes to play in your work.
So probably going back about 7 or 8 years, I got really interested in meditation. And so I started doing TM, transcendental meditation, where I would just sit and breathe for 20 minutes, focus on my breath, focus on the mantra. And I noticed a profound change after meditation each time. And I felt very calm, centered, relaxed, and just a lot better. So at that same time, I also really dove into painting, and found also that painting was very meditative and mindful for me. These last couple years, I've been doing a special squeegee technique. I don't use brushes. I only paint with squeegees. And people would tell me that they would come to the gallery and say, you know, so many of these paintings are really energizing, and we want something for our bedroom, a living room, a quiet space, but you know, these pieces are just a little too energizing sometimes. So I would think about that, and I'd ask myself, well, how could I make something more pleasant, more calm, more relaxing, more soothing? And that's when I started practicing the painting of these mindfulness circles, like this yellow one behind me right here. It's about 4 by 4 feet, and I use a squeegee to paint it. And typically it will be roughly a 2 to 3 hour long process, with maybe two 1-minute breaks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I like how you were sharing with me that blending of, you know, meditating and then also your craft of painting, how that allows you to move in even kind of deeper into that mindful, meditative stillness place.
Right.
I remember you sharing with me as you make these circles what your process is. If you'd share a little bit about it, because it has the energy of a mindful movement.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it all starts with a centering prayer and a few deep breaths, a release, and the mindful meditation begins basically when the squeegee hits the canvas, and then ultimately I'm in a very, very focused, calm state. And you know, that's basically what I feel like mindfulness is for me. And so I have to maintain that state throughout the duration of the painting. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I completely blow it, and one false move and the painting is ruined. Um, it usually happens at the very end as well, which is ironic. So I'll be at it for, you know, 2.5 hours, and spinning in circles. I get really dizzy. The painting's on the floor. I'm above it, and so yeah, typically when I blow it, it's at the very end.
Well, it's interesting that you say you blow it, because, and I know obviously for your profession, there might be different interpretations per se, but I think about in the practice of mindfulness, it's that moment that you catch yourself, that you've drifted away from your breath and being in that present moment, that then you return, and it's that letting go. And so there's always that practice at play. And so, you know, the intensity, so to speak, of the duration of you doing your art for such a duration, I could see, you know, a pretty deep focus. And yet in meditation, often it's like, you know, clouds appear to try and capture our attention because our mind is used to attending to things.
Right.
And so it's that returning to that present moment that it is the practice.
Right. Yeah. And I suppose that would be a very Buddhist concept, especially when they're doing their 10 mandalas. And in the very end, they basically destroy that piece of art, and it doesn't matter to them whether or not that piece of art remains, even though they might spend all day working on it. But for me, it's my livelihood.
Yeah.
So if I happen to blow it, it's more meaningful, I guess. Oh yeah. So Jonathon, you purchased one of my mindfulness circles recently, and I just curious why you felt drawn to that piece of art versus the other pieces of art that you were looking at.
You had a wonderful description a moment ago about different clients that may come to your gallery, be moved by a particular piece, which my wife and I were, thought we wanted another piece, and then found that it was just too much energy, too busy in our space. And we wanted something that felt different. And there was a blue, I think it's entitled "Hold Me Now." That the experience of it is that it was alive, that there was an energy to it, that as if it was breathing as you attend to. Because for me, art is the experience of the recipient, so to speak, and it's such an individual experience. And so we were collectively, you know, drawn to that particular piece in our space.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting too, because you actually saw this piece in the gallery, and at that time, it didn't strike you. And it wasn't until I showed you a couple other pieces in your space, and you weren't quite sold on those. And then you said, you know what, why don't you grab that blue one? So I brought that over, and then immediately put it on the wall, and you had this sort of visceral reaction.
Yes. There is just kind of that knowing of that had the right energy. Yes.
Yeah, that was a great experience for me, because I was very surprised at the time that you even wanted to see it, let alone fell in love with it right away.
Yes. And I would think that is the experience of many, you know, people that collect art or are drawn to art. It's an experience that they have with it, and what they want for that particular setting.
Right.
You shared something with me also in terms of how nature fosters and inspires your work.
Yeah. So this morning, I hopped on the Hobie kayak because I live on the lagoon in Carlsbad, and I I pedaled my way out to the bridge, and it was beautiful as usual. And I was fishing out there, and within a short amount of time, I caught a couple spotted bay bass. And then I hooked into probably 6-pound Corvina. And the fight was intense. It was jumping. It has very large, sharp teeth. And I've never caught one in that area. I've caught them at the surf before, but the experience for me fishing is always extremely mindful and intense and exciting. Anytime I hook into a fish, I'm like completely in the flow state, doing whatever I can to land this fish, and everything else disappears. Whatever I was thinking about is instantly gone, and I'm completely just present, fully present, surrounded by nature, typically blue skies. And yeah, I always find great inspiration from nature, so I try to get out there as much as I can.
That's wonderful. And I appreciate your representation of that flow experience, because it's not what many would project to be a meditative space where you're just sitting on a cushion in silence with your eyes closed. It's being present in the aliveness of an experience and being in that particular moment. So I appreciate that. Coming back to how you enter into your art, because most artists are opening to a certain expression as they bring paint to canvas. And so I wonder, as you enter into a piece of art, is there an intentionality with what you're wanting to bring forward? And then it starts one way and then it has its own life, or how do you go about your creation?
So I have 3 series. I have a balance series, a flow series, and a mindfulness series. So the balance is about order and chaos. One side's orderly, one side's chaotic, and to strive to live in the middle and balance. And then the flow state is it's very movement oriented visually. So that one, it's about being fully immersed in the activity to where you forget about everything else. And I think that's kind of a basic definition of being in the flow state. So, those concepts are, I guess, concepts that I've thought about probably for a couple decades, even when I was a teenager, kind of wondering how to foster more of those ideas into my life. And so for me, these paintings are an expression of myself and what I strive to attain more of in my life. And it feels like it works for me, especially when I see them. There's always there's that idea attached to each piece, so it's a reminder for me, whether it's balance, flow, or mindfulness. I'm looking at these pieces all day in the gallery. People come in, I bring them to their homes, they buy them, I get to tell them what they mean, and they all really like those concepts.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of like we all want to have various tools in our toolbox to take on life. And so, I think about that series that you just spoke of in terms of order and chaos and finding that middle space. And I speak to that as the calm amidst the chaos. And often people, when you're teaching, how to meditate, they want a perfect environment, dark, quiet, no distractions. Whereas in life, that's really the resources meant to be pulled and utilized when there isn't that kind of energy, but to still find that calm within. So I can see how people would be gravitating to those different resources.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we all really need that. We're overstimulated as a culture with our screen time, and we need much more calmness and presence in our daily lives. Um,
So in that process of you doing your art and you're saying the duration that you're in that space and the focus, how do you anchor back in when you find yourself kind of drifting off to your attention being pulled?
Good question. Um, if it gets bad, because I'm standing up and I'm spinning in a circle relatively quickly.
Mm.
And so usually after about an hour, I start drifting and I need to take about a 1 minute break because I'm dizzy and I'm very tired. So I take a 1 minute break and then I hope that the paint doesn't dry. And that's why I don't take longer breaks.
Mm.
Because if I did, the paint would dry and then also the painting would not turn out right. Um, so yeah, a combination of dizziness, and I can kind of feel like, there potentially could be a mistake on the horizon if I don't take a break.
Mm.
And, so I just, at this point, kind of trust my instincts on that. And like I said, I don't always do it. Sometimes I make the mistake,
Sure.
and I'm not happy about it. But
Yeah.
like you said, that's the process of mindfulness and my art. So
I was thinking about a lot of artists as they do their craft, they actually move into more of that altered space to open to the creative, to allow it to come through. And so I could see that circling experience could be a very altered state in terms of
yeah,
creating.
yeah. When I stop, the room is still spinning. The circle is spinning, and the room is spinning often too. So it's difficult sometimes to stay in that mindful, focused, ideally flow state.
Yeah.
It's difficult. So
If you would, Ethan, you shared with me a kind of a workshop you did with a number of healthcare executives related to our times. And if you'd share a little bit about that, I thought that was very interesting.
yeah. So we had 24 medical executives that wanted an experience in the gallery. And so the people running it asked if I could do a painting for them while they ate and an art lecture. So I did. And in the beginning of the demo, my first line was, for the first part of my demo, I'm going to need a nude model. And everybody laughed. So that was my icebreaker. And then I talked about my art. I did a toast. I painted a hummingbird for them. So I've painted a lot of hummingbirds. I've done quite a few paint and sip events for companies on Zoom when COVID hit. And so they had a great time. They were here for about an hour and a half. They ate, they drank, they watched me paint. They asked me a lot of questions. They were very interested. They liked my art. So
But
overall,
there was an intentionality to the workshop, though. There
yeah,
was a
the person
to,
the person who asked me to do it, the one running the event, she asked if I could do a painting related to chaos and the chaos of COVID. And so I did a balance painting with the duality of, order and chaos. And she wanted me to relate the chaos of COVID to the painting. So I did. And then the silver lining was the hummingbird. So I painted a silver hummingbird. And my question was, what is the silver lining for COVID in the medical field? What are some silver linings? So While they were eating, they were thinking about that. But, you know, I think I had told you, it felt like they were kind of burnt out on the whole COVID topic because it's probably all they hear about all day long.
Yeah, but pulling back and hearing about that from a distance, I could see, you know, there's been a number of silver linings in terms of how quickly we've been able to come out with vaccines, and how quickly as a world we've learned how best to address some of these things, and how rapidly that we have responded. So I think it was an interesting theme. So
Yeah.
we're going to have to, Ethan, I really appreciate your time. We're going to have to close. Anything that you want to just share in closing for today?
Oh, yeah. I would like to donate a mindfulness circle to somebody who has a nonprofit. If they want to email me, ideally the nonprofits around mindfulness, mental health, maybe some other things that are good I can't think about. So yeah, Ethan at Zagö Studio Gallery.com. And
Wonderful. That's very generous, and it's a way of you giving back and having an impact another way in the community. So I appreciate that, Ethan.
yeah, yeah. And then also, yeah, come and visit me in Solana Beach. I'm at the gallery, Zagö Studio Gallery at 415 South Cedros Avenue, Suite 140. I'd love to show you some of my art and the other artists that we have in here. We have about 10 artists from all over the world. And many of the pieces in here are very mindful.
Well, Ethan, I appreciate you sharing your process, your work, and it's been a pleasure to have you, and thank you for what you're doing and what you're offering.
Thank you, Jonathan.
And to all of you, thanks for joining us today, and until we meet again, please be well. Thank you very much.